So after EVO 2023, they announced Guilty Gear Strive Season 3 and the first character of Season Pass 3, which is Johnny. It's been about a month since then. He came out with the Season 3 pass. As usual, I wanted to just take a look back to see how the character has developed. I mean, I can sit here and make videos about Nagoriyuki and Happy Chaos and Ramethal over and over and over. Honestly, that would be pretty easy for me to do. But we talk about the meta all the time. Let's look at the new character. So as usual, I got my handy dandy checklist to go through and see what makes character good in Guilty Gear, and we're going to weigh Johnny on these things. We're going to be looking at offense, defense, neutral, and knockdown, which I think are the 4 phases of basically any fighting game. If you want more details on that, I have made a video on that before, so go check that out. Please raise the view count on that, please. Alright, so first we're going to start with offense. I mean, Guilty Gear is a game about offense. First, we want to look at moves that are plus. So outside of your standard fare, which would be things like close slash, it's obviously plus. There's only a couple of characters in this game that have close slashes that are minus on blocks. There's like Faust and Axel have that. Basically, everyone has a +1 on block close slash. Johnny is the same. The thing that makes him stand out actually is his upgraded Mistfinder. So he still maintains the leveled up version of Mistfinder, but instead of 1, 2, 3, he just has like the card cut. Funny enough, it's called turn up. So where a normal Mistfinder would be relatively disadvantageous, a powered up one using a card is pretty advantageous and causes guard crush, which is very, very helpful to him in a lot of ways. So next would be a fast or instant overhead type thing, and of course Johnny does have this, the air Mistfinders. So even though I used one that reaches down, every single version of air Mistfinder is an overhead. So even something like this is considered an overhead. So any doubters, by the way, I do have Baiken blocking crouching only, so this will hit, right? Boom. Overhead. Okay? Believe me. The next question is, does he have a safe dust? In this case, there are examples of characters that don't have instant overheads but do have safe dusts, right? I do mean things like doing an air Mistfinder, or like I main Baiken, right? So there's Yozan-san, or when I'm playing Melia, I have Bad Moon. So these are overheads that are essentially you can't react to them. They're just too fast. They're too fast. You can't react to them. Usually the characters that have these type of overheads neither have nor do they need like a safe on block dust. Characters like Zato and Happy Chaos, so they have safe dust, but a trade-off is they don't really have instant overheads. At least they don't have ones that they could just do whenever they want. Like they have like obviously guessing game high-low 50-50 type things, but they don't have just like oh snap, guess what, boom, you just got hit by an overhead out of nowhere. In Johnny's case, again, he has the air Mistfinders, so the importance of his dust is kind of lessened in this case. So he doesn't have a safe dust, but it's okay. Now, a special point in his case, I did show that he has the instant overhead Mistfinder, but on normal hit, it's whatever, but with a card in play, you get a very advantageous overhead because of the guard crush. Normally, characters with super fast overheads like this need to use resource to make them safe. Right? If you play the game at all, you're used to fighting Baiken doing like instant overhead Yozan-san, Red RC into whatever, or Melia doing Bad Moon, Red RC into whatever. So this is a pretty unique thing about Johnny in this regard. And speaking of 50-50s, I mean, he's a walking 50-50 basically. Anytime he does a jump cancelable normal, he can go into high or low if he feels like it. Of course, there's risk associated with it, like I mentioned before. But with the card in play, it makes both the high and the low options safe. So whether or not you choose to do your low with sweep or your low with Mistfinder, it doesn't really matter. And remember, Mistfinder is, with the card is very, very advantageous whether or not you go high or low. So this is a very, very good thing for him. So next question is, how quickly does the character build meter? This is based off a bunch of things, which is how much they move, how much do they move forward, how do they play the neutral game in the first place, how is their pressure structured, things like that. So for example, a character like Baiken, she's like decent at building meter, mainly in that there are matchups where she can just do a lot of stuff, like do ID back to Tommy, do a lot of Kabaddi, wall you out, but there are some matchups where she can't use these tools very much, so in these, you're not building meter very quickly. Building meter quickly is important, of course, because it helps your offense, helps your defense, helps your movement, helps everything, lets you just do everything. Now, traditionally, Johnny's pretty good at building meter. I do think he's decently good at building meter in this game. I thought that his walk doesn't build meter as fast as I remember it from Exerd. I remember in Exerd, he builds meter like crazy. At least that's my memory, but he also does a lot of stuff. And the reason why I keep talking about doing stuff is because things like just doing a special move builds meter, or running forward builds meter, attacking builds meter, hitting people builds meter. So being very active and neutral and doing a lot of actions builds you meter. It's an advantage. It's one of the strong things about characters, like on the one hand like Zato from all the Eddie things that he's doing, but on the other hand a character like Ram, she's fast, she can get in, she keeps pressure a long time, she's recycling moves, building meter. Currently, my assessment of Johnny is he's kind of like okay at building meter. So he's good at converting hits, which means his combos build meter. But I don't feel like he does a lot of stuff in neutral. I mean, it's probably like a matchup thing, but it doesn't feel like he builds meter necessarily really like quickly until he catches you. Next, we gotta talk about the throw situation. So he has a couple things he could do. It's pretty easy for him to safe jump. You can also choose to throw a card out and just do offense from this and go for like high lows and things like that. To my knowledge, if you throw the card out and the opponent has like a meterless reversal, I don't think he could actually just go straight into pressure. I don't think he has a safe way to enter pressure unless he backs off. But he does have the safe jump option, so that's fine. For the characters who don't have meterless reversal, doing this into a card toss basically starts enabling his win condition. He could just immediately start 50-50ing you. So this is, I overall want to say, a pretty good throw. So how good is a character against YRC? So as far as dealing with YRC, I think Johnny's very slightly above average. So specifically in that he has kicks that are safe against YRC. So not everyone has this. So Baiken, for example, she cannot block YRC after a kick. She can only do it after punches. So it's not that common for a character to have that. Outside of that, I didn't see any like specific safe tools. One thing that is worth mentioning is that he does have really big range. So there are ranges where your YRC just won't reach him, which is definitely a unique thing for a character in this game. Usually only other big characters like Nago, Ram have stuff like this. You wouldn't think to try to YRC from this range, but it's nice to have a thing that it's like you don't have to think about the opponent's meter in that spot in this range, where there are a lot of characters who would try. I mean, not a lot of characters. Basically, everybody would be willing to try to turn the situation around with a YRC. So the next question usually would be, how safe is the character against burst? But in this version, the burst changed in that there's the shockwave that hits full screen. So to be honest, I've been really thinking about how to weigh this. It's a lot harder to be burst safe in this game than previous versions. I've only found a couple of situations that are like consistently burst safe, for like as a concept. So here's one example of Baiken that involves Wild Assault, and you're gonna see her run up here. So in this example, after the Wild Assault connects, Johnny doesn't get access back to his burst until he splats, as in the wall splat gives you the burst back. So once the Wild Assault connects, I am not able to really burst. So he has a red Wild Assault, so he probably has a lot of roots like this. So his conversion ability while taking away your burst is pretty good. So he has something like this, for example. So same idea. I have Baiken set to burst on the 7th hit, so she's not able to do it here because she's wall splat. So in this version, you're not burst safe in the traditional sense, you know what I mean? So like last patch, you had characters where you could outrange bursts, or you could attack with your character's gimmick outside the range of burst, but now it hits full screen. So it's much less common for you to straight up like bait a burst unless you hard bait it. With that being said, because he has that aspect of red Wild Assault you can't really react to, so you kind of had to react to the hit before it, or else you can't burst. So in that aspect, he's good against burst in that he could take it away from you in a pretty reasonable way with red Wild Assault. This specific item on the list, I don't really know how to quantify it the best way possible yet. Let me know what you think about that, by the way. I have tweaked this list slightly for this patch because things have changed system mechanic wise. This was the first thing where I was like, this one's a little bit different because of the new way that burst works and Wild Assault. The next question is, does the character need to hit you to win, or can they make you block and win? So this is referring to this actually an idea I had from when I was playing Milia. Because with Milia, you need to hit people to win. Specifically, in my most doom era of playing Milia, like right at the end, right before I switched to Baiken, I won a regional tournament. There's a pretty well known Kaio player named Danny. El Maza Danny, right? After I played him in casuals, my legitimate strategy the next day was every time I make him block, he mashes and I lose. I pick the wrong thing and I lose from it. So since I'm always hitting him, if I make him actually block, I should just run away and I should just try to get strays. And when I get a stray, I just run my normal mix and I ended up winning pretty clean. So it gave me this idea that there's some characters that could make you block and win the game, and there's some characters that have to hit you to win the game. Having this, it sounds weird because you have to hit somebody to win in a fighting game anyway. But in this very offense-oriented game, Guilty Gear, there's some characters that can attack from like safe neutral ranges and convert it into offense that they can win off of. So this is what like casual players don't like about fighting like Zato. This is why everyone doesn't like HC. This is why a lot of people don't like Nago. The reason why a lot of people don't like Ram. The reason why a lot of people don't like Chip. These characters don't have to hit you to start winning. They could like just catch you and put you in a bad situation, where usually the weaker characters, while they might have good offense, they're not really scary unless they hit you first. So what about Johnny? So Johnny is a weird one because of how he works. So specifically, he can't like dash block, so he can't reset pressure the way other characters can. I thought that if he gets you in this position, he can beat you by making you block. Like, he doesn't have to hit you to win. He can threaten a lot of stuff from here. He's really, really safe from here. He's really good at keeping you in this range if you're not mobile. And then if he has this too, then blocking is a really, really bad spot. And he has good set play. Like, he has not just good knockdowns, especially if you don't have meterless reversal, but he also has good 50-50s. He's good at using his meter. That being said, in the middle of the screen, I don't think blocking him is really scary at all unless he has resources. So he's in a really like middle position to me, where it depends on where he is on the screen. But then also, this isn't a normal fighting game in that in this game, you can break the wall and go back to the middle of the screen. So it's like they made a character that is especially good at cornering you, but the game has a phase where you go back to the middle of the screen. Even though you're in a advantageous position, like you're really close to the corner, the person who the wall got broken on, they're close to the corner, you could set up special offense and stuff. So I think overall he has to like throw you or hit you to like reliably win, or if he like out neutrals you, he can like put you in the corner. He has good conversion ability again, so if he does get a hit, he gets really good situations. But I think overall he has to hit you type to win. The next question is, how's his damage? I showed an example combo before. I don't think his damage is like out of control, but I think it's kind of fine because once he gets on you, he's looping like more than plus 20 guard crushes and 50-50s and stuff. Plus in this version, I really think he's made for this version too, because you're getting positive way more than previous versions, so I think he uses it well. So a new item on the list that I've mentioned a bunch is the Wild Assault type. So he has a red Wild Assault. It's pretty much agreed that red is the best Wild Assault. For those who don't know, it is the fastest one, so you can convert normals that the others can't. So I can convert this, I can convert this. It really helps with his conversion ability. My main Baiken has a blue one, so if I use Far Slash, I cannot get a combo here. I have to get specific hits like counter hits or heavy hits in order to convert into my Wild Assault. In her case, it actually does help her for a couple of things, but most of the blue Wild Assault characters, they don't use Wild Assault to help them combo. They have to use them for specific stuff, where the red one is fast enough for combos, and as I mentioned before, it's pretty fast, so you have to burst quickly or else the red Wild Assault will take your burst away and they're going to break the wall, and now you're in a really bad situation. So the next one, which is also a new one, is about the Flex Shield. So how good is the character against it? And in this case, I think he's pretty good at it because he has some pretty big normals. So even if you do it here, like his normals reach. So I don't think he really has a problem with the Flex Shield. I think it would mostly come from if someone has the meter to use it in like a high-low situation. But they're usually doing enough normals like Host Slash is 5k. So you're able to threaten with throw in these situations as well. And then last, we have to talk about the wall break situation. So I want to say, is good at it if the opponent doesn't have a reversal, because he can't safe jump 9-frame reversals. So For example here, Baiken has a very fast reversal. It's 9 frames, her sword super. So if I try to do a safe jump, I'm going to just get smoked. That being said, if they don't have a meatless reversal or anything like that, you can layer offense pretty well on them. A common thing would look something like this, where the P misfiner is an overhead. So next we have to talk about defense. So first we're going to talk about how fast is his fastest button. So his fastest button is 2P. It's 5 frames, pretty standard as far as I'm concerned. Nothing really special about it. Everyone has at least a 5 frame button that they can mash on so that they can get out throw situations on block. Does the character have a meterless reversal? No, he does not. Is their super horizontal or vertical? Why does this matter? So it matters because of ranges you can attack from. So having a horizontal super means that they have to treat your reversal or bait it differently. It's easier to bait reversals that go up than reversals that go out in general. Just general rule for the game. So what's my name is pretty huge. Even though it doesn't look it, it reaches pretty far. And you could extend into it just like this, so it's pretty useful for him. Then we have to rate the character's backdash. Johnny has the best 5 frame backdash in the game. So the way this game works, in old Guilty Gear, everyone had like a unique backdash. So for example, Milia had an 11 frame backdash total, and then 6 frame invincible. That's crazy. Potemkin had a 21 frame backdash, but it was invincible for 20 frames. The character's individuality was expressed through a lot of things in the system mechanics between like knockdowns, backdashes, things like that. In this game, just for the sake of memorization, because it was a lot to memorize, there's 3 type of backdashes: 4 frames, 5 frames, and 6 frames. Generally, the heavy characters have 6 frame ones, but Sin has one also. The advantage is you have the most invincibility. The disadvantage is that they tend to be reactable because they're like 23 to 24 frames. I believe Gold Lewis has the fastest one at 22 frames. If you have a 5 frame backdash, you have an average backdash. The most average backdash in the game would be 5 frame invincible, 20 frame total. Many characters have this. Then you have the 4 frame backdashes, which are not the best on defense all the time because you don't have as much invincibility as the others, but you have the great advantage of people can't react to them because they tend to be like 16 frames, 17 frames. So like May has a 4 frame invincible, 16 frame total backdash. Milia also has one. Bridget has a 4 frame invincible, 17 frame total backdash. Johnny has a 5 frame backdash, but a 16 frame total. So he has the total duration of a May Milia, but the invul of like a standard character. So this is really strong. It's very strong on defense. That being said though, he has a unique thing that I don't have on this checklist, but I have to mention for Johnny, in that he cannot dash block. So I have Baiken just doing jump here, and no matter what I do, I cannot block here during his dash. For those of you who think I'm trolling, by the way, I have the virtual controller on, and like as you can see, I run into it even though I'm blocking. In Exert and XX, he had the ability to cancel his step dash into faultless defense. Also, I think his step dash was faster. I definitely think this is his slowest dash that he's ever had. His back dash is ridiculous, but his forward dash, despite traveling a long distance for a step dash, he just doesn't have the ability to dash block. I also find weird because Leo Whitefang has a step dash and Giovanna has a step dash, but they have the ability to cancel theirs on frame 2, I believe. He does have other ways of moving around the screen with like the misfinder dash, especially retreating or advancing. He's got a 6K, which travels a very long distance as well. This is a unique weakness on defense because there's a lot of situations in this game where one of the safest ways to mitigate the situation is dash blocking. So him not being able to do that is definitely a flaw considering how good his backdash is. Next question is, how fast is the 6P? So his 6P is pretty good. It's not like huge or anything, but it activates quickly on frame 3 like Baiken's, which is very useful. So having a 6P that activates quickly not only makes your defense better, but it makes it easier to anti-air. It makes it easier for you to react late with anti-airs. The example I always like using is Leo Whitefang. So here we have 2K, 6K. Pretty common string that Leo Whitefang players use. The 6K is very safe on block. His 2K is good as well. So if you have a fast 6P, you can interrupt this. Testament, despite how powerful this move is, the 6P invincibility does not activate quickly. So no matter what, no matter how hard I try, I will always get counter hit by that 6K. They can slip out other ways, of course, but 6P is not one of them. Next, we have to talk about how fast the 6P is. And when I say how fast the 6P is, I'm talking about how quickly does the invincibility activate. The way it works in this game is that first you start from upper body, so we're talking about the waist and above, and then you go from the knees and above. So I have Leo doing a typical string here. This string is 2K, 6K. They use it quite a bit. Johnny's, unfortunately, his 6P activates on frame 4 above the knees, so he is not able to 6P the string. Now he can slip out backstep, no problem, but 6P is a no-go. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I will not be able to 6P this. Now Baiken has one that activates on frame 3, so it's faster, where Johnny gets hit no problem. I'm able to 6P it with Baiken, also no problem. So next question is, how fast does the character's jump? He has a standard jump speed. So this question is basically only important for the big body characters because they have slower jumps by 1 frame, which does matter in some situations as far as setups, escaping things like that. And the last question is, how quickly do they build meter? We talked about it before in the offense section. I have the impression that he builds meter well, but I also feel like he kind of has like average meter build for defense. This would be for using reversal super and using YRC. So next we have to talk about neutral. So the first question is, can the character attack from safe ranges? So what do I mean? Rather than having to like pull up or use very risky moves, so in Leo's case, like, oh, let me just do this move sweep that I can't cancel, right? Leo has very safe ways of approaching. He has button into guard cancel. He has his step dash is ridiculous. As he could dash block during it, where Johnny unfortunately cannot. Safe ranges would be doing stuff from here that is just hard to punish. Johnny's really good at this. He has, of course, Mistfinder. This move is -15, but but can the opponent get there is the problem, especially if you're good at spacing it. He has big buttons in general that are not the easiest to whip punish unless you're a character that is blessed and privileged. If the opponent is waiting too much for Johnny to do stuff because they're like, oh, well, he can't just dash at me, then not only does he have the really far 6K, but also he can throw out cards, which means he can become very plus from a pretty safe range using advancing Mistfinder, encouraging the opponent to move around the screen. Next question is, how fast is their air dash? His air dash is pretty standard. I don't think it's really standout. We usually look at this in terms of speed. So characters like Millie and Chip have faster air dashes than everyone else. But then there's also air normals too. So characters like May are kind of hard to anti-air. I do think that the jump H is a little bit hard to anti-air. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But as far as his actual air dash alone, I think it's pretty standard. Funny enough, the next thing on the list is, do they have a slow JH, which they do. So the reason why this matters is if the opponent anti-airs late, then they won't be able to anti-air your jump H. Okay, so that's me doing it so that he hits me early. So there's a timing difference, right? So even though 6P is a very strong move, if you have something that reaches deep enough that it hits the opponent's hurt box, you can still hit them. So having a slower, slightly slower JH, a very universal theme in this game is slow JH, deep hitbox, which means it can be hard to anti-air in some situations. Next is, can the character stall in the air? So when the game came out, this wasn't very common. Now it kind of is to different degrees. Johnny's pretty good at it. He has an air Mistfinder stance that affects his mobility, as well as the air Mistfinder step as well. He can toss cards to the ground with deal as well, retreating to stop anti-airs as well, which I think is very good. And he has an anti-air in Mistfinder, and he falls slower while he's holding this stance, so like this. So he has a lot of ways of messing with people trying to anti-air him. Can he 50-50 you from neutral? This is a very privileged thing. In my opinion, yes, it's kind of situational. So the main one that I think would be common would be using this into PRC. So there are a couple of variants to how he does this from this move, but for a couple examples, so he can do these from pretty far away. Basically, I want to say around 2/3 of the screen away, which is pretty good, but it costs resource. Similarly, from around this range, where 6K and dash are a thing, he has a few ways of doing mix-ups from a long distance, but again, he needs meter. So the next question is actually one that I basically have to remove from the list, but I'm going to just mention it just because, I mean, once upon a time this was something you had to deal with. Can the character immediately approach you from a gold burst? Before season 3, when you gold bursted, you got 100 meter right away. This is pretty traditional Arxis stuff. So there were some characters that were able to either set up from full screen right away or approach you immediately or something like that. Where in this version, the gold burst gives you positive right away, so you don't get the meter immediately, so it's not really as big of a deal. I think it ends up being how good are you from attacking at safe range is more important than can you do something immediately from gold burst. So does the character have, and I love this term for Guilty Gear, does the character have a fuck it RC option? And we definitely just showed one. This is probably the main one. I think this is just really powerful neutral skip tool, especially for a character that, again, since he can't block while he's dashing, just having ways of traversing that space really quickly and getting a mix up off it that's safe, I think is really strong. How fast is their 6p is another one. So we covered this in defense. So his 6p is pretty good. His 6p activates invincibility above the knee on frame 4. Now, the thing uniquely with him is that you're not running around. I shouldn't say you specifically. I mean, you can play Johnny however you want, but the character is not fast most of the time. Like, you're not playing him very quickly. You know, characters like Millia and Chip, they're dashing all over screen, dashing in and out, baiting you. But he's kind of more of a more measured character initially until he gets some resource. So in that way, since he's spending a lot of time controlling the space directly in front of him and not playing up, or I should say not playing up. Not playing up is not the right way. He's not like just like running at you and flailing. I think that actually makes him slightly better at anti-airing, because there's times where he chooses between like, does he think you're going to come at him, press this button or this button, wait for jump in, or back off with his really good backdash. So does the character have tools in neutral that make it so their opponents have to play differently? So if there's one that I would really say enables this, I think it's the card, because without the cards and the card's properties, he wouldn't be able to do much the way he's built, is because, you know, he can't block while dashing. Again, he has to use normals or like his big buttons, jumping, repositioning a backdash. So if someone else is also playing really slow, then I think he would be kind of struggle bus. But just being able to do this, especially from being able to do it far, like from full screen, and being able to pull up with Mistfinder from like here, makes it so that the opponent, your standard character at least, can't just literally sit there and have to move into ranges where either that's not a thing or somehow discourage Johnny from just tossing the card out. Then can the character convert off all their hits? Basically, yes. He has a pretty good ability to just convert hits into combos between his Red Wild Assault and just his moveset in general. He has a couple of unique crouch confirms like this, and he's able to mesh jabs into knockdowns as well, which I think is really good. And as we mentioned before with defense, this one's unique to him. I don't think we'll have to revisit this with every character, but can the character dash block? And as we said, he cannot. Not only does this affect defense, but it also affects his neutral as well. But again, he has a lot of tools that cover a lot of space and have him moving forward at you, so I think it kind of makes up for it, but he is committing to doing these actions, so depending on who you talk to, they might not value this. Alright, so the last fun one will be Knockdown. And to start it, can the character win off throw? Basically yes. So especially if the character doesn't have a meterless reversal, you get to just set up a card right away and go into his really strong offense with the powered up Mistfinder. So the next question would be, how much resource does the character build off their throw mix up? So this is a thing that can like make or break characters. So like some of the stronger characters, they're just like directly strong, and then they become like super strong with resource. But there's some characters where they're weaker without resource, and then when they get it, you're like, oh my god, like I can't do anything about this. So having a good throw and then being able to build resource off your throw mix up is pretty important. Now I think in Johnny's case, there's a couple of ways to look at this. Obviously my combo was not close to optimal, but when you do this in the corner, for example, even when he has the ability to like build 50 meter, you have the choice to go into positive right away, so you're passively generating meter off this. So I think it's pretty strong in that regard. Can the character protect themselves from reversals and do mix-ups at the same time? This one I would need to see a little bit more. From my, at least as far as I know, I don't think he's super good at this. So using the same thing we did before, This is just gonna hit me. There's nothing I can do. So if I set the card, I can like bait. I could bait, but then you go into guessing games. This is me retreating. This is still RPS, but at least you're in a better position, I think, here, because I think this is like Johnny's ideal position if he's not just straight up mixing you up. That being said, like I play like Baiken and I played Milia. Specifically Baiken, when she throws you, there's really not a lot you could do with reversals and stuff. Like she pretty much locks you out if you don't have a meterless reversal, and if you do have a meterless reversal, she still has 50/50s that are also safe jumps, so you're just sad. Where if you choose to go this route with him, you have to play a guessing game, but he has a way to safe jump you, as we mentioned before. But you're not immediately getting like your super strong high-low situation that you want. Last question is the good knockdown loopable? So basically I want to say yes. So Johnny has a couple of different ways of knocking down. Like I showed, you know, so he has crouch confirm. So let's say this is like a kind of standard confirm. He can do this, for example. This only works on crouching. I wouldn't call this like the good knockdown. I do think one thing that's really good about him is that he's able to carry to the wall very easily. He converts really well that way. So in my head, the good knockdown for him is the wall break knockdown, because then he like powers up. You know, he's got positive. He does more damage, has more defense. You're building meter passively. You don't need cards when you have meter. So in positive, you could have the cards on them, or you could just send it with instant overheads if you feel like it. When you break the wall, you're very close to the corner. And in this version, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I was told this. I didn't check this yet on my own, but I was told this, and at least in my matches, I feel this way. When you break the wall again in positive, you keep the positive. In the previous versions of Guilty Gear Strive, you just had it for 10 seconds. So if you broke the wall after getting positive, you wouldn't keep the positive bonus. You would just have like however much you would have remaining. So if I think of that as the good knockdown for him, then basically he can loop that until you die. And all right, that's Johnny. I think he probably maxes out at high tier. His offense is really good, but I think his neutral and defense suffer from not being able to dash block. His backdash is great on defense though. Okay, don't get me wrong, it's like literally basically the best backdash in the game. But not being able to dash block and cancel things out of his dash just affects a lot of stuff about his game. Once he gets started though, I think he can really snowball matches. But just him not being able to move so freely, I think just really frees him up in some matches and makes it so like it's hard to deal with things. Things like Axel would be an obvious one. Ramathal I think is pretty difficult for him probably. Faust would be another one. Faust can crawl under like a ton of his moves. And I think the interesting but also weird thing for this game is that he's good when he corners you, but this is not a game about necessarily a game about cornering people. And especially because they've done things to discourage you from keeping the corner, so they're still shortening your combos, like shortening your combos in order to knock down earlier. That's still a thing, but many characters had like the wall slump tactic. I don't think he would have that, but wall slumping is very discouraged in this version. They really want you to just break the wall and use the positive, which he is good at. I just think the things that he's good at might not be the most important things for this game, but I do find him fun to play. Again, like his offense once he gets started, I think it's really threatening. But let me know what you guys think. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.